For rent signs continue to pop up across the United States. In California, this is largely due to the unemployment rate, which has risen to 12.2%. The Department of Police Services here at Cal State University Northridge offers students brochures with helpful tips on how to stay safe on campus. Jordan Canada rushed for 1,900 yards last year, missing 3 games, a preview to a promising senior year. But due to unexpected accusations, he must sit on the sidelines. Here at the Burbank Recycling Center, the materials are sorted and baled like these behind me, each weighing up to 1 ton. The Matador Mall, formerly known as a CSUN vendor fair, vendors must pay $400 for the week or $125 a day to set up shop on the Cleary Walk. KCSN gives journalism students the chance to write and report the news at the radio station, but the news will no longer be a part of the regular FM broadcasts. The new AAA format at KCSN offers a blend of rock, country, Americana, folk, blues, and jazz. This is the second year in a row the CSU system has not received funding for enrollment growth, which is why it is going to be very difficult for incoming students to get into CSU schools. Madeline Frizius is one of the many people across the United States who has been affected by the economy. She says it has been very hard to find a place to live because rent is very expensive and she was just laid off from her job.
The economy has affected it so much. I mean, minimum wage is only $8. So how are you going to pay $8 at a part-time job and still be able to pay rent? You know, it's really hard. It's hard to find a new place. My lease is up at the end of the month, and I don't know where I'm going to go, and I don't know what I'm going to do. It's really scary right now.
The housing market has taken a major downshift in the past few years. The foreclosure rate in 2009 is up 30% compared to 2008. But homeowners are not the only people affected by the economy. For rent signs, move-in specials, and vacancy signs can be seen on nearly every block as managers look to find people to fill vacant units in apartment buildings. People even post up personal ads looking for roommates in their own homes. Assistant manager at North Point Apartments, Tanny Sanjian, says they have had to lower the rent dramatically.
It was like $1,850. And the security deposit was also the same as rent, but we reduced it to $13.95, and security deposit is $250. So it's basically way cheaper now.
She also said that in the summer months, there were more vacancies in the complex than ever before. Ads on Craigslist are placed daily as property managers try to rent out spaces in their buildings. Apartment complexes have even thought of clever ways to lure in prospective renters by making fancy brochures filled with photos of their properties. But the application process may be the hardest part, as many people are turned down based on their income and credit history. For rent signs continue to pop up across the United States. In California, this is largely due to the unemployment rate, which has risen to 12.2%. This is forcing people into foreclosure or causing them to sell their homes. In North Hills, I'm Chelsea Peltin-Brown for Valley View News. Students across CSU campuses continue to work hard despite the hike in tuition costs and decrease of course offerings. Students are paying more to go to school, but they are spending less time in the classroom. CSUN business law professor Krim Greenlaw says students are getting shut out of the classes they need to graduate.
The real consequence for many students, for students so far, everybody is paying more. And a significant number of people have not been able to enroll in the classes that they want or need.
The 23-campus Cal State system has raised the price of tuition by 30% in response to the 20% state budget cut. Studies show the average time it takes to graduate in the Cal State system is now 5.7 years. CSUN students say the recent budget cuts have put their education at risk.
The future of education, overall, we're just going to see an overall lack of quality education, and even then, just the lack of a number of students, diversity of students, because, I mean, a lot of the students that are going to come in from the low-income communities, they're going to be at a disadvantage.
CSU Chancellor Charles Reed says the budget cuts to state schools are necessary. He says the CSU system recognizes the state's fiscal crisis, but the budget does not provide the resources the system needs to meet the needs of students and fund operations.
We're really faced with the prospect of not being able to meet the mission of the Cal State system, which is to educate a wide base of students and give them a lot of opportunity that we all feel is necessary to develop our state the best way, and it's really unfortunate if this has to continue.
California has more than 3 million students attending college, but they are currently cutting the most in education. Students at CSUN have taken action to voice their opinion. Students for Quality Education organized an event in which the students taped their mouth to symbolize the silence on campus against the budget cuts. They encouraged students to speak out against the budget cuts and shared their personal stories.
The students are here today to reclaim our voice on this campus.
But little students came to the gathering as most students walked past the protest. One student who watched the protest says the students shouldn't have to suffer.
I just don't think it's fair. I mean, classes are already expensive as it is, so to raise it more and to get less for it is, I just think, a bad thing.
Student protesters were pushing for students to support Assembly Bill AB 656, which would generate funding for all three segments of public higher education in California by enacting a new tax on oil and natural gas. This is the second year in a row the CSU system has not received funding for enrollment growth, which is why it is going to be very difficult for incoming students to get into CSU schools. At Cal State Northridge, I'm Chelsea Peltin-Brown for Valley View News. After containers are taken from local centers, they are brought to larger recycling centers where materials are sorted by hand and machine. Recycling coordinator Craig Hampel explains what goes on behind the scenes.
We go through about 100,000 tons of curbside recyclables. They come from businesses and from residents, mostly residential.
Trucks are weighed in, and then the materials are dumped into the appropriate bins. These bins contain materials such as bottles, paper, glass, and shoes. These items then continue along a conveyor belt. Workers sort through the materials and remove non-recyclable items. The rest of the items continue on the belt for further sorting so they can be bundled together. Here at the Burbank Recycling Center, the materials are sorted and baled like these behind me, each weighing up to 1 ton. They are then put on trucks, later to be shipped out to China. Each day, 400 tons of curbside recyclables are processed at the center. In Burbank, I'm Chelsea Peltin-Brown, Valley View News.
This is the evening update on 88.5 KCSN.
Tucked away in this dormitory building is CSUN's radio station, KCSN. Here, students can get a hands-on experience in writing, producing, and anchoring the news. But changes at the station have recently taken place to appeal to a larger audience. The new format is now an adult album alternative format, also known as AAA, which broadcasts 24 hours a day on 88.5 FM.
Since about 2007, we've been looking at the audience. And we realized that we really just didn't have a sustainable audience or support from our members. And so we began to look at options.
She also says she hopes the new format will appeal to students as well. The classical music that used to be played on the station can now be heard online. The new AAA format at KCSN offers a blend of rock, country, Americana, folk, blues, and jazz. But one thing you won't hear on the new format is students giving the news. The student newscasts are now broadcast on the HD2 channel.
It's a different receiver, but it's a one-time. It's not like paying XM all the time. And you generally need, depending on where you're located, you may need a separate antenna plugged into that because it isn't as strong a signal as our FM.
Journalism student Melissa Brown is not in favor of the new format.
I was pretty surprised when we found out. I was kind of disappointed because I have some friends and family, who like to listen in their car or whatever, and not that many people I know really have HD radios.
Students will still be eligible for traditional awards and can still reach an audience via web, iPhones, and Blackberries. For now, students will continue to produce the news for the morning drive and the award-winning evening update. In Northridge, I'm Chelsea Peltin-Brown for Valley View News. Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa seems to be getting support for a new transit system. Washington officials say the proposed system could serve as a national model for speeding economic recovery. The star-studded Super Bowl was the most watched program ever. The Nielsen Company estimates more than 106 million people tuned in to watch the Colts versus the Saints.